We've done world's most expensive wine, world's most expensive bourbon, and now in today's episode of Our Poor Decisions, we are trying and comparing two of the world's most expensive Merlots, Petrus and Masseto. Now, we already know these wines are some of the elite's favorites, like our Queen Bee, David Beckham, and more. However, are these wines Pops approved?
We're gonna let you buy it if you're good enough. I don't know how I feel about this tasting.
In today's episode, we will be trying these wines and going through the history of what makes these wines so special. Find out in today's episode if there's more hype than juice involved. And thankfully, we'll have our favorite sommelier, Stacy, to guide us through this journey.
Hi, wine lovers. Welcome to another episode of Our Poor Decisions.
And today's episode kind of feels like clickbait a little bit.
World's most expensive Merlots?
Yeah.
Well, Petrus is the world's most expensive Merlot, and Masseto is arguably the second most expensive.
So I guess it's kind of true. But a lot of our viewers, they always ask, B and Pops, are the expensive wines you try on the channel actually worth it? And I kind of want to know what your thoughts on that are.
You know, the answer to that is almost always no. These are luxury goods, and the winemakers command prices that make the wines almost unattainable for everyone. It's not a measure of quality in my mind. It's a measure of limited supply and almost endless demand from people who have means and don't care what the wines cost.
So if it's almost never worth it, why are we trying these expensive wines today?
So I think one of the fun things that we do for our viewers is that we pull the curtain aside and taste the wines for what they are.
Okay, and what are your expectations for today's tasting?
Well, on one hand, I am so excited about trying Petrus. I mean, how could you not? These are arguably two of the biggest names in the world of wine.
Even I've heard of Petrus.
On the other hand, it's like, is this gonna be more hype than juice? I'm worried about that.
Well, thank goodness we have Stacy to walk us through this journey today.
Exactly. You wanna get started?
Let's do it.
To understand why Petrus and Masseto stand apart, we need to begin with the land itself. Petrus is located in Pomerol, a small unclassified appellation on the Bordeaux's right bank. Unlike the left bank, there are no Grand Cru designations here, just a handful of small estates, judged purely on merit, and none is more famous than Petrus. The vineyard sits atop the highest point on the Pomerol Plateau, just northeast of Chateau Lafleur and bordering Vieux Chateau Certain. In fact, the original Petrus estate was much smaller, just a few hectares, until it acquired additional land from neighboring Chateau Gazin in 1969. The soils here are unique, a rare iron-rich blue clay. It holds water during drought, slows ripening, and produces Merlot grapes with remarkable structure, depth, and longevity. No other vineyard in Pomerol has quite the same concentration of this clay. Now let's move to Italy's west coast, to the Bulgari region of Tuscany. Masseto is located just inland from the Tyrrhenian Sea and sits adjacent to Ornellaia, the state from which it was originally born. In the 1980s, Ludovico Antinori, who founded Ornellaia, identified a small hillside with compact clay soils and believed it might be suited for Merlot. That hill became Masseto Hill. Just over 7 hectares, it quickly gained a reputation for producing one of the richest and most elegant expressions of Merlot anywhere in the world. Surrounded by Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc, planted for Ornellaia, Masseto stands alone, both in grape variety and in stature. Despite being over 700 miles apart, both vineyards share key traits: heavy clay soils, meticulous farming, and limited footprint.
Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So today we're doing two of the most famous Merlot wines ever, right?
The most expensive Merlot and Italy's most expensive Merlot. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Have you had Petrus?
I've had Petrus. The last time I had it, though, they were probably just bottling this. So it's been a long time. And all I remember was just being kind of blown away by, like, this is the most expensive wine I've ever had.
How much did you pay for this Petrus?
So I paid $4,750 and for the bottle of Petrus and about $1,200 for the Masseto. You know, when I did this, it was like, oh my gosh, am I really doing this? Am I really paying $5,000 for a bottle of wine? But you know, we gotta do it.
The people demand it.
I feel like it's almost impossible for this not to be a letdown. we always do research going into a tasting and try to learn as much as we can about the wineries and the chateaus and what goes into it and what made them great and all that. In the sustained brand development and kind of luxury image of Petrus since the 1950s, right? Starting with the coronation of Queen Elizabeth in 1953, the Kennedys in the 1960s, Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt's wedding.
It's a history lesson right in the glass.
I mean, Abramovich, Silicon Valley, LeBron James. I mean, the list just goes on and on about, this is like the ultimate status symbol, right?
For sure.
Serve Petrus at dinner.
Make sure you leave the bottle on the table so everyone can see it. Label facing out.
And there's a part of me that just
doesn't get behind that.
I'm not into that.
Well, that's funny you say that because you're trying it on the internet for everyone to see.
Wow. Okay.
So then there's that.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I don't think I've tried a wine this expensive since we did the Latoche video.
Yeah, which turned out to be a total disaster, right?
Oh God,
Yeah.
it was.
Le Pau was like $5,000.
Yeah.
And it turned out that it was kind of like, it was fine, but it certainly, I would have gotten as much enjoyment out of a $75 bottle of wine as I did out of the Le Pau. But there was a history to the bottle. There's a history to how the wine came about. That's possibly the case with Petrus and Masseto as well.
I do have one thing to ask you. Don't you have like a special Petrus bottle or something that's super rare?
So I did get a bottle of Family Reserve Petrus. It was a generous friend who gave this to me, and it's a 2009, which is of course a fabulous year. And the person who gave it to me knows who he is, of course. I feel like that bottle is almost more special or even more special than the actual Petrus bottling.
That's gotta be one special occasion to open that bottle up.
And it's probably gonna be 15 to 20 years from now.
Yeah, I'll serve it to you at the nursing home. Don't worry.
So, Stacey, where do you want to start?
I mean, one, since we don't know what they are, right? We've done this blind. Okay, so I mean, let's just start with one. See what happens.
B has all the power.
Well, before we start, if you enjoy our content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can make more videos.
We need a lot of views to pay for these kinds of wines. Masseto is one of the most celebrated Merlots in the world, but it began as an experiment born from ambition, clay, and a complicated family legacy. In the 1980s, Ludovico Antinori, the younger brother of Marchese Piero Antinori, founded Ornellaia in Bulgaria. In 1986, he planted Merlot on a hillside rich in marine clay. The site, now known as Masseto Hill, covers just 7 hectares, and its compact clay, unusual for Tuscany, proved ideal for concentrated, age-worthy Merlot. The first vintage of Masseto was released in 1989. It quickly gained critical acclaim and collector demand, but the ownership story took a dramatic turn. In the late 1990s, Ludovico sold a estate to Ornellaia to Robert Mondavi Winery, seeking international growth. But by 2002, Mondavi had taken full control and effectively forcing Ludovico out of his own project. Then in 2004, Mondavi was itself acquired by Constellation Brands, a US beverage conglomerate. Just 1 year later, Constellation sold Ornellaia and Masseto to the Frescobaldi family, longtime rivals of the Antinoris. So the wine Ludovico created now belonged to his family's competitors. Since 2005, Masseto has been run independently, with its own state-of-the-art winery completed in 2018. Fermentation is done in stainless steel, followed by 24 months in 100% new French oak, and additional bottle aging after that. A second wine, Massetino, was introduced in 2017. Production remains tightly limited, around 25 to 3,000 cases per year. The 2004 vintage came after the heat of 2003 and delivered a more refined, classically structured wine. Wine Advocate rated it 97 points, praising its dark fruit minerality and polished tannins.
Let's go with number 1.
Okay.
As far as color goes, what are you guys seeing?
I think I see more breaking in number 1.
In the first one? Yeah, maybe just a touch. You know, it's definitely got a little bit more of an orangey rim, for sure.
Let's start sniffing, B.
This is the Masseto. Sometimes there's like this Italian nose that springs out to me that is like, VA and clay and like this
There's
kind
no
of
doubt.
funkiness, that is what that smells like to me.
There's just no doubt. I'm no expert on Petrus, but if this is Petrus,
I would be shocked just from the nose right away. When I smell Italian wines, like I said, there's like this earthy kind of thing to it. It smells a little bit more like volatile and a little crazy and earthy and red clay. There's something a little funky going on here.
okay, you think it's bad?
You said they weren't corked.
Oh, they're not corked. That's not cork.
Okay.
So I don't want to call it gasoline, but there's something petroleum
Mm-hmm.
based that I have in some wines.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely not something that I'm looking for. If I just had this on the nose, I'd be like,
Not super excited about it.
nope,
Can we go ahead and try it?
I think we should taste it
let's do it.
because I don't know that we're getting much more option.
All right, cheers. All right, I'm going to go out and say, this is not nearly as bad as I was fearing, right?
It tastes much better than it smells, for sure. And there are so many more things to talk about on the palate.
So I get the cherry on in the mouth. I think the cherry is very much present.
Yeah.
I do get great acidity.
Mhm.
I think it's got a nice mouthfeel.
Mhm.
I don't get the chemical taste.
No, not at all. For me, there is something like kind of port wine and dusty chocolatey about it. There's something real like overripe raisiny cherries. The tannins are real like powdery dusty and they just feel super fun on my palate. I like the texture. It goes on for quite some time too. It's got a nice finish that seems to be like pervasive. It lasts. And there are more things about like a nice aged wine that are here, like leather and some chewiness, and the structure's really pretty.
But at $1,200,
Still a lot of money.
Yeah.
this doesn't, I mean, I think about the wines that we've had at $1,200,
Yeah.
right?
Hobriel, 1990.
We've had all the first growth, right?
Yeah.
They would be under that. I mean, I could do a Duckhorn Three Palms and I'd probably get more satisfaction out of it, right?
Okay.
But then again, we need to taste number 2 in order to be sure about number 1. The modern story of Petrus begins not with a chateau, but with a négociant. In 1945, Jean-Pierre Moix secured exclusive sales rights to the estate. At the time, Petrus was little known outside of Bordeaux, but Moix recognized its potential and understood how to build a brand. He positioned Petrus as the right bank's answer to the first growth. When owner Madame Lubon died in 1961, Moix gradually purchased the property from her heirs. His son, Christian Moix, later took over management, refining both the wine and its reputation. There's no second label, no Grand Chateau, just a single wine from a small 11.4 hectare vineyard. And when quality isn't up to standard, they don't bottle it. No Petrus was made in 1956, 1965, or 1991, and volumes were sharply reduced in challenging years, just like in 2013. Petrus became a favorite of collectors and heads of state. It was even served at Queen Elizabeth II's coronation banquet. Today, bottles regularly exceed $5,000, and older vintages, much more. Fermentation takes place in concrete vats, followed by 18 to 20 months in 100% new French oaks. Annual production averages 2,500 to 3,000 cases. The 2000 vintage of Petrus is one of the most celebrated modern releases. A near-perfect growing season led to powerful structured wine that critics praised for both richness and balance. Robert Parker initially scored it 96 to 98 points and later confirmed its long aging potential. We'll be tasting this vintage today with Stacy 25 years later to see how it's evolved in the bottle. And even though this is presumably an older wine from 2000, we know that 2000 was an extremely age-worthy vintage. And we know that Petrus can be aged for 50, 60 years easily.
Sure. Mm-hmm. If this is the Petrus, it's really just coming into its drinking window.
Yep.
Well, it definitely smells a lot more balanced.
It has all of the fruit flavors up front. I'm getting like all of the blackberry and red and black cherries, and there's something plummy about it, like all the things that make me think, oh, this could be Merlot. Yeah, it's a lot riper. You know, all the sour things we were talking about here, everything here feels a lot more ripe and plush.
You know, I do get a little bit of forest floor and a little bit of maybe a little bit of mushroom and all that. I know that Petrus does not, they're very conservative on the use of wood, but I do feel like I get maybe a hint of cedar, maybe, or something like that. This is not all the way into tertiary, but it's starting. But it definitely has Bordeaux on the nose. They cannot be done. All right, cheers.
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 $5,000 for that is crazy.
So you're admitting that that's what that one is?
Well, I don't know, but you guys think it's that one.
It's so much more youthful. Like the fruit is still so present and so lively. There is really fun little savory qualities. There's something a little bit like olivey in it that's really nice.
There is a mid-palate thing on this wine that I've described to you in other wines. And it starts with a
Pyrazines.
Pyrazines. I think this has pyrazines in it.
Yes,
Or
for sure.
Because I've decided I'm not crazy about pyrazines. And I think that's an age thing.
It could also indicate more about this being Petrus, because they do like to pick their Merlot a little bit early to preserve some acidity. And if you let it ripen a little farther, some of the pyrazines ripen out.
That's not the
That's not your
flavor
style.
profile. It's a style that I love.
I really do like this wine.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, it is super nicely balanced. All the little flavors are coming together really well. The fruit is really nice. The acid is there. It's good and tingly. The little bit of pyrazines that I think are there are adding something to the party. It's like making it a little more complex and not just the fruit. It's got some smooth tannins to it. It has a really soft palate, like feel to the mouthfeel.
You know, there's no doubt this is Petrus, and there's no doubt that all the things that you're saying is true. And I just don't care for the mid-palate.
Well,
the mid-palate
you wanna
to
give
me
your
is
glass?
just...
I'll just finish it for you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, the mid-palate to me is that it's just...
If you don't like pyrazines, they are there, and
It's
it's
just
not going to hit
demi.
you. I don't think it's that bad. I think that you're really sensitive to it and you don't like it, fine. But I think for our viewers, like, it's there, it's a presence, but I think it's really nicely balanced.
I think they're going to be gone in 15 years. I think they're not going to be nearly as present.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think this wine is, I think we're drinking it 10, 15 years too young. Gosh, you know, this is a $5,000 bottle of wine. I mean, does this blow you away?
No. Was there a wine that was going to blow me away $5,000 worth? Like, I don't know.
That being said, it's like, I'm thinking about all the first growth that we've tried.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking about the Osson, Angelus, and Cheval Blanc. I don't know. I think I may have preferred all three of those.
Are you guys ready for the reveal though?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Oh my
please.
gosh, I want to know.
You guys are never gonna believe it, but this was number one.
You are freaking kidding me.
I'm just kidding.
You know, you are.
I managed to
The
just-
one thing I love about you is that you're a terrible liar, B.
And this is number two, guys.
All right, so
Now we know.
Masseto, we're not sure about the quality of the bottle. We think maybe there's
I
some
might be
in there.
alone on this, but I think there's something, this is not an ideal bottle. There's
Yep.
something off.
Okay. B?
I thought it was still good. I'm curious to see how it will drink in a couple hours. Overall, I just feel lucky that I got to try both of these bottles.
100%.
What's your takeaway from the Petrus?
So again, I think this is a really nicely well-made bottle. I do think that it is balanced. There are some delicious flavors going on. It's holding really nicely. It can age for, I mean, gosh, like 20 more years easily. There's so much that still retains here. The color, it's still youthful. It's barely entered that developing stage, right? And at 25 years, that's nuts. I do believe that there are better bottles of wine, better bottles of Merlot at better price points.
I like the Masseto better than you did.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on the nose. It's off. I think the bottle itself is a little bit off. The Petrus, nah. I mean, great wine. I think I can buy 100 Merlots that I would get more enjoyment out of than this one right here.
Yeah.
And this goes back to our beginning of why do we try some of the most really expensive wines, right?
To reveal
You
the
don't have
curtain.
to.
You know, we're going to draw the curtain, and what you're going to see here is the real thing, right? Well, Jeff, what do you think? Do you agree with our kind of our conclusions? Would we have rated this wine the same if it didn't cost $5,000? And have you ever been disappointed by a legendary wine? Let us know in the comments below. And if there's one thing we learned from tonight's tasting, it's this. Price and pedigree don't always guarantee pleasure. In the end, it's what's in the glass. What's your favorite? And how it speaks to you Petrus, for sure. that matters
Okay.
most.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, everyone.